Welcome to the new episode of Secrets of Trading, everybody. Today we have Miles with us today. So Miles is actually in both of our groups, but personally, I have worked with Miles like on one-on-one sessions and everything like that, and I've seen great progress with him. And hopefully you guys will get to get a lot of information and a lot of nuggets pretty much out of this episode. So welcome, Miles.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. Really excited to be here.
Absolutely, man. Yo, if you could just kind of like start with your journey, like where you started trading, how you got into it, what was so interesting to you about it, and where your passion came from for it. If you could just start with that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So for me, I ended up first hearing about Forex probably, I want to say third year university. So I was probably about three and a half years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, was probably the first time I heard about Forex. A buddy of mine was just telling me that he was getting started with it, or one of his friends was getting started with it. And once I heard about it, it sounded really interesting. Just what grabbed the thing that made me want to, learn more about it was the fact that I was not really aware of any other businesses that you could scale up like in the like you can with Forex. Like, with most other businesses, if you're going to scale up, you have to increase the amount of output that you're going to have, the amount of energy that you're going to have to put in. Like, you don't put in the same energy for, $100,000 business as you do a $10 million business. But with Forex, the thing that was crazy to me was you can literally put in the same amount of output, and what changes is your account size. But it doesn't take any more time or energy to trade $100 account or $100,000 account. So that's what was shocking to me when I first learned about it. And then, like I said, heard about it from a friend. Just started reading some PDFs, some PDF books from different types of groups, and that's kind of where my Forex journey started. I wasn't too into it when I started in university. I was more just focusing on the education and just trying to learn more about the industry. And then kind of as time progressed, that's when I started. I think it was probably after university, actually, when I started actually trading with a live account, and just really trying to, get into the trenches, so to speak. So that's kind of how I heard about it. A buddy of mine said he had some friends doing it. I was like, I never really heard about it until that point. And then, while I was in school, it was just kind of doing research, reading the PDF books, and just familiarizing myself with the industry, pretty much.
Was this the first financial market that you really started with, or like with a lot of people, and myself included, and started off with stock first, and then kind of gained a little bit of understanding of investing and trading, and then moved on to Forex?
Yeah, so it actually was, well, so my background, I actually went to school for finance. So I was always familiar, you know what I mean, with kind of stocks and mutual funds. Like I had a mutual fund set up, from the time I was younger, and just, put a little bit of funds in it. But that was kind of just more on autopilot mode. I didn't really, nothing that I was actively investing in. Like, this is the first, Forex was the first thing that I actually put a lot of time into and actively started trying to figure out how I can start investing in it. So I always kind of, I read about stocks here and there, but I never actually, outside of, just putting my X amount of dollars in a mutual fund, like, once or twice a month, I never actually went out of my way to do a lot of research and take a more active role in my investing. So Forex was definitely the first industry that I did that in, for sure.
Awesome. Did you kind of like did it start out as a passion for you where you got introduced to it and then all of a sudden you were like, oh my God, like this is amazing. Just keep digging into it and really starting to do your research, or was it more of like got introduced to it, teetered here and there, like trying to figure it out, and then eventually then you got into it?
Yeah, I know. So I would say, as soon as I heard about it, like, I would say my interest was there, but maybe not so much the passion. The passion came as I actually started to do more than just the reading and the education, and I actually started to really see how much it could do for me outside of the charts. That's when, like, the passion really kicked in. But I would say from the get-go, though, I was always very interested in it. It was always something that I made sure to put time into, just because, like I said, the opportunity and just understanding, like, the potential to scale, like, that was the opportunity was too great for me not to put a lot of time and emphasis into trying to achieve that. So yeah, it's kind of both. The interest was there from the beginning, but the passion in terms of like, making sure, like knowing that it's something that I want to do long term and that I just really have respect for and how much it does for me outside of my trading and outside of the charts. That passion came after I actually started live trading or demo trading and started getting into the daily in and outs as opposed to just the educational aspect.
What were some areas, like what was your journey like specifically when you've learned a lot of things, right? From like a theoretical level, you can read a lot of books, and then it's a whole different thing when you actually start applying it because you start to realize that, it's not just clear cut as you would read it in like any books, right? Or any website. You don't just go
Absolutely.
onto the charts, draw a couple of lines, take a couple of trades, right? There's a whole like system behind it. So what were like some initial areas that you kind of struggled with in the very beginning when you had to apply those theoretical things practically onto the charts? And then what eventually, breakthroughs that you've had, basically is what I'm asking, where you actually start to see results.
Yeah, no, so that's a great question. So for me, to start, I guess the things that I struggled, some of the theoretical things, it's actually funny that when I first started, I didn't find that I was struggling too much at all with like the theoretical things. Like, don't get me wrong, I've learned a ton since then. And I guess I would say I've learned a lot more details and kind of fine tune my abilities and, been able to read charts better. But from the beginning, I followed a really basic, I guess, strategy, if you want to call it.
Right.
And I didn't really find that I had too much problems with the theoretical side. It was more so for me the psychological aspect. But on to your point about when you're talking about the theories and things like that, like something that I found when I first started that was challenging which just came to mind is trying to identify support and resistances and knowing which ones are important enough for you to identify and knowing which ones aren't really going to impact your trade. So as a new trader, that's something that I found difficult because there's just everything's a support and resistance if you kind of look at it that way. So I would say that's something that I know I struggled with in the beginning, is just trying to figure out what levels are the most significant and not trying not to get too micro and looking at every single last level, because if you do, you're never going to be able to find any opportunities if your chart's just marked up like crazy. So I would say what helped with that is really just understanding the top-down analysis, starting from the higher time frames, working your way down and understanding that, if you're executing on the 30-minute, for example, you don't need to go to the 15 and the 5-minute and mark up a whole bunch of support and resistance is there. You know what I mean? You just keep it simple. You start from the top, work your way down. And that helped me a lot. So I would say that was probably theory-wise one of the things that I struggled with in the very beginning as a trader, and just watching, I didn't know you guys at the time, but watching traders like you guys at that time, I was watching Raja and Ted sometimes online, and just watching live traders and seeing how they think. That's just invaluable. You know what I mean? Just being able to have that type of information. So that's I would say that was kind of a big challenge for me in the beginning.
I think that's something. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think that was something key that you kind of touched on that I, again, want to place a little bit more emphasis on real quickly is coming back to the basics. So I think a lot of people when they start, and I think we've mentioned a lot of times, Stefano's, either on our live or in one of the episodes, is that a lot of times when people go through like this emotional trading cycle or like psychology, they're having issues with that. What they end up doing is either first it starts off with like, the very basic things, which is like over trading, over risking and things like that. But then eventually they get to the point where they start adding or trying out new strategies that they don't have any data with before, right? And then eventually they start to get into like, all the indicators, all the different strategies, they have like their chart marked up so much that even they can't read it if they were to explain it to somebody, right? And then it really comes back to just coming right back to the basics, right? Having like a clean chart and then understanding like price action. And then you realize that that's really what the game changer is. So I think that was very important. So if there's like anybody out there who's like watching this and you're kind of struggling with that, and if that really kind of resonates with you, where you have your chart just full of different things that even you can't understand, the key thing here is really just come back to the basics. Keep it very simple onto the charts.
100%. Yeah, I mean the market is confusing as it is enough for most beginner traders. But what I found is, and one thing that we work on in the group a lot is just marking out charts. I have you guys mark off the charts and in the live streams and stuff like that, where you guys are marking off your levels. I draw it as well. But what I found was the more you guys volunteer to do that, the more you guys get better and more confident throughout the weeks. Whether it's the first week you guys start doing it, the
Mhm.
next week, the weekend after, the week after that, you guys are marking off charts perfectly. And then all of a sudden, your win rate starts to go up. So besides psychology, if you could just start marking off the correct support and resistance, you can massively increase your win rate just by doing that. Because a lot of people, you guys are taking a lot of trades with the wrong support and resistance, and then all of a sudden selling at a support, buying at a resistance, and you're getting trapped, you're getting faked out, and yeah, it all just comes down to drawing the right level there, and that could fix that easily. So, one thing I wanted to say before was, Miles, there's one thing I've always been impressed about from the beginning was the amount of journaling that you do in the description section on Trello. If you guys aren't familiar with Trello, it's just a section that you could type out the psychology behind the trade, write out anything about the trade that is specific to you, and what you want to remember later on when you go to view that trade. You've always had a very specific way that you do it, where you break down the psychology of it, you break down how the candles were, and it's very extensive, very detailed. Tell some people about like how that has helped you when it comes to reviewing your previous trades and how much detail you put into it. Obviously, it's tedious. I know it's tedious. Some days you don't have time to even do it, but you know how important it is to do it. So if you could just talk about how important that is.
Yeah, no,
It's
for
funny you're
sure.
laughing because we both feel the same way about it.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, journaling for me, I mean, just in general, like I'm a pretty organized person, so it wasn't too hard for me to get started with it. But the amount of value, I mean, honestly, like I've had friends in the past who trade and they don't journal. I'm like, how can you trade if you're not
Yeah.
journaling? It's like a professional athlete not looking at game tape. Like
Yeah.
you can't hone your craft. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So to me, like just the value that it brings to me, like obviously I put my details in terms of the trade itself. That's obviously one thing, but with trading, for me personally, like trading is more of a psychological challenge than
Oh yeah.
a theoretical challenge, like what I mean, or technical challenge. So for me, like it's very, very important that I take the details to put myself right, so I can look at a trade from 2020 of last year. I can look at a trade from 5 months ago and say, this is what I was thinking, this is how my morning went, this is how I felt when I entered the trade, this is how I felt exiting the trade. And just having those details, I mean, first of all, it helps you to just like identify patterns too. I mean, it's almost like just journaling. Like, Steph, you got me onto journaling in my personal life, and it's like the same thing. The more you journal, how your days are going, and you just track and track, then you can start to realize what you're doing wrong. You know what I mean? And even if sometimes the change doesn't come immediately, but at least you can be aware of the things that you need to look out for. You can be aware of the things that are hindering you, and vice versa. You can be aware and look, hey, these 5 trades this week, I had a great week this week. Let me go and see, what was I looking at? What were my setups that week? What was my psychology that week? So
Mhm.
to me, like, I honestly just think it's a necessity. And especially when you're not at the point where you want to be yet in terms of consistent profitability, like it's a must. You know what I mean? Like, you're
Yeah.
just doing yourself a major disservice if you're not getting that amount of detail. So yeah, no, for me, it was just always something that, I needed to do. And in the past, I would say probably before maybe the middle of last year, I was still consistent with my journaling. But I would say probably around the middle of last year, like I made sure to just like, even because, as you guys, well, I mean, you probably doesn't happen to you guys now, but it's hard to journal when you have a crappy trading day. You know what I mean? If you just over traded and you're just like, "Ugh, I already know what I did, I don't need to write it." Like, no, that's exactly when you should be writing it the most. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So like since probably the middle of last year or so, like I make sure that every single trade I take, I make sure I journal it. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
and it also, to your point also, Steph, like because it's kind of long and it can be extensive, like that's a good thing. Because if you want to, I find it's like if you want to continue to trade profitably, I know for me, the less trades I take, the better I trade. So if I'm journaling and I have to do 30 journal entries for the week, like that is also an incentive to not overtrade. You know what I mean? Just
Hmm.
take your one
Hmm.
trade for the day, take your, and just keep it simple and kind of be done. But yeah, the value that it's brought for me is just it's been huge just to kind of see, the growth or the lack thereof, depending on, wherever you're at. But at least you're getting that data and that information so that you can build upon it. So yeah, vital, absolutely
Yeah,
vital.
there's different tiers to it too. Where you were saying like if you take a losing trade, it's hard to journal that. Just because you don't feel like doing it, you walk away from the computer. You're just like, all right, you
Hmm.
know what, I'll come back to it later. Then you never get to it. I do see different tiers of journaling too, where really novice, part of the 90% of traders that fail won't do this at all. They won't journal at all. They won't study their past performance. But the next tier of that, I feel like, are the ones that only do it when they're failing, right? The ones that only are going through a slump and they're like, all right, I'm just gonna, I got to figure this out. I got to climb my way of a slump. They climb their way out, and then all of a sudden they stop again. Right.
Mhm.
But the
Right.
ones that are really good, the expert traders are doing it whether they're trading well or trading badly. Right. And they're keeping that consistent. And that's something that's very common amongst really good traders is just keeping that consistent. So just keep it up with what you're doing right now. Don't let the overconfidence come in. I'm not only talking to you, just anybody.
Hmm.
Don't let the overconfidence creep in because that kills you. It kills you just as much as fear does when you're not executing on trades. So again, I think you're doing great with that. Just keep it up and yeah.
Will
I
do.
think it's also very key because a lot of times when like, for example, when we're doing our one-on-one sessions, when Miles comes in with like that kind of detail, there's a lot of times where he's like trying to explain a chart to me about like a specific trade. And it's like I don't even have to say a lot of times I don't say anything in the one-on-one session. It's mostly like Miles saying like, okay, now I see like, what you mean, or like I see like, what just happened at this trade, whether it works out well or not, like he is able to pick up on those details, but that wouldn't have been possible if you don't journal your trades, right? And if you don't mark off like the entry exit points and things like that, if you don't put in the details that, Miles, for example, that you're putting in the description. So the last question that usually we ask everybody is, what are a few things that you wish that somebody had told you when you started trading, and where do you think you kind of are in this like trading journey, like, like in the very beginning, or is it kind of in the middle where you're like, I'm still trying to figure my way out, or you're kind of at the point already where you're thinking like, I know, kind of I've had the experience to back up my trading, my experience and everything like that. And now I'm like, I figured my stuff out. Like now I'm like on this roll, pretty much being consistent.
Yeah, yeah, I know. So for the first question, in terms of what I wish I would have known from before, um, I guess I did know, but there's a difference between hearing it and experiencing it. I wish I knew how much of a psychological grind that
Mhm.
trading can be. Because I'll tell you, before trading, I considered myself a not extremely, but I considered myself a bit, I would say very self-disciplined person. And like once I started trading, it opened my eyes to like there's levels to this. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you really have to understand, and that's what I love about it. It really shows you where you're at. But um to me, I would have said like that's the one thing that I would have wanted to know going in. And again, it's not like I wasn't told that I was, but like to me, for my personal journey, that's something that would have helped. And I think also something that what I would have liked to know from the start is um, kind of like understand that it's a very not on the technical side, but on the psychological side, it's a very personal journey. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? So what works for someone else may not work for you, and vice versa. So I think something that's something that I would have liked to know as well from the start is just understand like you can't, not everyone's way is going to work for you. It really is something where like you have to know yourself, you have to
Right.
know what triggers you, you have to know your psychology, you have to get to know yourself, and kind of create your trading plan in terms of your, you know, your risk management, your trade management, things like that around, you know, kind of how you are as a person. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Because what works for Steph, like we all trade differently. What works for Steph may not work for VJ. What works for VJ may not work for me. So I think that would have been something that I really would have liked to know, have known from the beginning. Also, is understand that it's a very personal journey as well when it comes to,
Mhm.
again, not the technicals, because there's fundamentals just like there is in any industry, any skill that you have to understand. I'm more so talking about psychologically. Understand that once you get your strategy down or the fundamentals down, fundamentals in terms of, you know, technical analysis, fundamental analysis, that sort of thing, then you really have to know yourself and know yourself enough to know what's going to work for you in terms of managing the trade. Are you someone
Right.
who needs to walk away from the charts and just do a set and forget strategy? Are you someone who needs to be in and out quickly, so you need to be looking at the charts? You know what I mean? Little things like that. Are you someone who needs to take off 50 as opposed to letting the whole thing run? Just those little details, I think are really, you know, they have a lot to do with your personality, and
Right.
that's something that I think would have helped from the beginning if I had known that. Um, and then to your second question about where I'm at in my journey, um, I'd say, you know, I've seen a lot of progress since I've started trading, in terms of, you know, how I see the charts, in terms of being able to catch bigger moves, in terms of just understanding the market better. And then also in terms of like psychologically, like, you know, when I first started trading, you know, like I blew a small account one time, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and now it's like a bad week. Like for me, when I first started trading, a bad week might be like 13%, like, which is ridiculous. You know, you're
Yeah.
never like early on, you know what I mean? But that's not going to be sustainable. Now, a bad week might be losing 4%, you know what I mean, or 5%. So um I would say throughout
Progress.
my sorry, would you say, Steph?
It's a ton of progress right there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. You know what I mean? So for me, where I'm at in my journey, I'm not where I want to be yet. You know what I mean? I feel like kind of like what, you know, you guys know, I talk to you guys on a regular basis.
Mhm.
The psychological aspect of things has been my biggest struggle.
Right.
As someone who's really competitive, and like in my personal life, you know what I mean? It's very like what works for me in my personal life is very different than what works for me in trading, which that's something else I would have liked to have known. Like in my personal life, if I'm taking an L, or if I just lost, if we're playing basketball or something like that, run it back. You know, I'm ready right now, run it back. I have high pressure situation. That's when I'm going to perform. Whereas with trading, it doesn't work like that. You know, you have to humble yourself. You have to be cool. You have to be like, all right, I just caught an L. I'm going to just walk away, close the charts, take a break. You know what I mean? So for me, I think that's what's been my struggle, is trying to change that part of me to just be more not as emotional when it comes to competition, because in the real life that serves me well, but in trading not so much, you know what I mean? So
Right.
but honestly, I think I'm 100% confident in my technical abilities right now. Like
Right.
I feel like I know I already have the skill to execute and get those consistent returns.
Mhm.
For me, and I like, you know, when you can, I feel it. Like I feel that I'm close. I know that I'm close to breaking through that ceiling, and I've seen some of the progress. But yeah, for me, I just gotta, you know, continue to keep my head down, keep working with you guys, and you know, just continue to push myself and improve that self-discipline, and just, you know, continue to work at it. You know what I mean? You can't get discouraged. You know, just got to show up every day, and you know, continue working on it. So yeah, for me, I really feel like I feel very close. I'll just say
Mhm.
that I feel like, and I've seen the progress, and I feel like very shortly, it's going to be not an overnight shift, but I feel like that exponential progress in
Right.
terms of seeing it, in terms of the equity gains, I really think and feel that that's going to be coming soon. But until then, and even when that happens, just continue to improve, like Steph always says. You know what I mean? Don't get happy, don't get satisfied. You know what I mean? You can celebrate your successes, but you still got to always, you know, keep grinding. And you know, you guys are both been a massive help to me, you know, in my trading journey and in my personal help, in my personal discipline journey. Just, you know, having people like you guys to, you know, follow, look, and just look at what you guys are doing on a regular basis, on a daily basis. You know what I mean? It makes it a lot easier to continue pushing and just to continue to be inspired, and, you know, just keep going. You know, you guys make, both of you guys, I'm in both your groups. Like, so I get the best of both worlds, you know what I mean? And you guys have different styles and both add, you know, like a lot of value. So yeah, you know what I mean? I feel blessed to have, you know, been in the community.
No, we lose him.
Yeah, he paused out. But that was definitely like very fresh perspective.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. You
Yeah.
you froze out for a second there.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
I was just saying, basically I was just thanking you guys, you know what
You
I mean?
went Batman on us. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
We definitely
appreciate
appreciate that. We appreciate that a lot. But I think it was a very fresh perspective when you were talking about, you know, we have pulled a lot of parallels between things like outside of trading and in trading. But I think the very fresh perspective here was when you're talking about, if you're playing a sport, if you're playing basketball, you're very competitive in that. And so
Mhm.
you're like, you know, if I take an L, come back with it, you know, I will perform under pressure. But it's very different in trading, because if you try to come back with that same exact like aggressiveness into the markets, you're going to end up over trading. You're going to end up getting into that, you know, emotional trading. So I thought that was a
Mhm.
very, very fresh perspective, definitely for a lot of people.
There's a lot of similarities with business and trading, or athletics and trading, but a lot of massive opposites too.
Right.
When it comes to patience in this market, like business, you gotta go like 100% every single day, go hard, and the goals have to be kind of short term,
Right.
long term as well, but mainly short term, especially when it comes to getting calls out if you're doing the sales for your own business and stuff like that. But business with trading, it's got to be a long-term plan. It's got to be thinking long-term, and what am I going to be doing this month? What am I going to be doing this year as far as equity is concerned and stuff like that. One thing I wanted to touch on when you were talking about being, you know, having different styles. That's one of my favorite things about trading is everyone has a different style. Risk management,
Mhm.
especially, it's psychology. It's fascinating. Like everyone looks at the market differently, and there's thousands of strategies out there too, which is so cool. One thing though, I was on a Zoom yesterday with a student explaining to them that like when they're on the live stream, for instance, you need to trust your own gut, right? It's important to be on a live stream with other people in a community, exchanging ideas every single day. You're not trading alone, you're not getting in your own head, stuff like that. But when you're on these live streams, and you add your analysis in there, you need to trust your own gut. Why? Because when you're trusting your own gut, let's say you take a loss. Let's say you trust your own gut. This is your analysis. Your mentor or somebody else in the group says, that's I maybe wouldn't be taking that trade, or I maybe would be taking that trade. As long as it's not an egregious analysis and it's like ridiculous, you
Mhm.
need to be taking that trade and trusting your own gut, because now you're going to learn from that. And I'd much rather you learn from that and take the loss, as long as you're not over risking, than listen to somebody else miss the trade and then all of a sudden you're like, why did I just stay out of that? You
Right.
got to be able to commit to your
Mhm.
own analysis and trust your own gut in those instances. And if you lose it, so be it. You just learned something, right? And that's a much better place to learn. But it doesn't give you it shouldn't be something where you're staying out of live streams or you're staying away from communities and letting that get to you, where that's where you want to be. You want to be with like-minded people and
Mhm.
trading with people, getting analysis from other people. But at the end of the day, trust your own gut first and then move on. And if you lose, you lose. But most of the time, those people are giving you the right guidance, and they're not trying to see you fail or anything like that. So
Even if
um
it's just a paper trade, I mean, I think it's very essential, you know, just to trust your gut, even if it's just a paper trade, right? Journal that, and then you're still going to learn from it. But I think the important thing here is just kind of reiterating what you said, Miles, and then also you, Stephanos, is that it is a personal journey, 100%. Nobody's sitting in a classroom or in a conference room trading together. Everybody's like in their own spaces, right? You're trading alone eventually at the end of the day. But it is a lot more about the community as well, where that's where you're going to learn from, regardless of whatever, whether it's trading, whether you're learning how to code, whether you're learning how to do something else. A lot of it comes down to the community too, right? Whether you're trying to play a sport, that's how you learn. You learn from other people. You learn through collaboration. And I think that's where a lot of the exponential growth also happens. Of course, like in mentorship programs, but even at the end of the day, the mentorship programs are really just a community for you to go in and learn from other people too.
Yep.
Absolutely. And just sorry guys, just one thing I just wanted to
Yeah.
add. Something that I also would have wanted to know really quick as a beginner trader is understand that more chart like unlike a lot of other things in real life, you know what I mean? If you want to be a better basketball player, hoop more. If you want to be a better business person, read more books. Like I find with trading, there's a very fine line where it's not like more chart time equals better trader or better
Right.
trading. And I think so not in terms of, and you have to know yourself, you know what I mean? But that's just something that I feel like some people may not really understand either, is just like it's not, trading is one of those things where obviously yes, you got to get your back testing in and you want to get better, but at the same time understand, especially like in a live market setting, like less is usually more. Like you guys, I think either of us spend
You froze out
less is
again,
more.
Miles.
Oh man.
It's all good, man. I
It's
think we
okay.
got what
So
you were
Yeah,
saying too.
less is
okay,
more.
cool.
Less is
Yeah.
more.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's my point.
100%. I mean, I kind of go back and forth with that too, because you can build a lot of discipline by sitting in front of a chart for a week and just sitting on your hands and not taking a trade. And that tests you, right? And it's hard. A lot of people can't do that, right? But like if you could sit in front of a chart and get chart time, just watch the candles play out, there is a difference there. But again, if you have that problem where you're over trading and you're just sitting on the chart all day, that is not good. And
Mhm.
really, like with backtesting, you really shouldn't sit there for a backtesting session more than 2-3 hours. Anything more than that, it's not good for you.
Mhm.
It's too much.
100%.
It's too much for your eyes. You start to get sick of it, and you don't want to be in that situation. But it's just like watching film. The more candles you see, the more setups you see, the better you're gonna get. That's just how it is. But again, you got to be disciplined and not actually execute on these trades at 2 in the afternoon when Wall Street's at lunch.
Exactly.
You know,
100%. But thank you so much for coming on with us, Miles. I really appreciate that. There
been
was
a great
definitely a
episode.
lot of, information here. Like you said, great episode, and also a very fresh perspective on a lot of things too. So there are a lot of stuff that we talk about, with other students, and but I think you brought in like a very fresh perspective in terms of like just trading, and then also your journey in general, and like what has helped you progress. So over the last couple of years or a couple of months. But I think this is definitely one of my favorite ones, favorite episodes for sure.
I love bringing
So,
guests on. Like we
yeah,
have great episodes, me and you, like just talking about the subject. But
yeah.
when we have that three-way conversation and just getting perspective over someone that's either just starting out or they've really made a good progress, like Chris. I mean, you're making great progress as well, day by day, and you're just taking it as it comes. So just keep it up, keep what you're doing up, and keep the detail up, the journaling, the back testing, all that, and don't look back. It's all about just taking it day by day and making sure you're putting as much detail as you can into this and loving the game.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me. Anytime you guys want me, I'm always here, and I'm glad. Yeah, great
Yo,
experience.
baby.
Obviously, we'll always catch up. We talk all the time. So
Oh yeah,
yeah, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
of course. It was a
100%. Before
pleasure.
we let you go, if someone wants to, reach out, have any questions after watching this, where can they reach out and contact you?
Yes, you can follow my trading account, Trading with Miles, and it's with a MYLES, not MI. Or you can follow me on my personal Instagram, which is Miles Daniel at Miles Daniel 6.
Awesome. Awesome. All right.
Beautiful.
So I hope you guys got a lot of information out of this. As always, you guys have any questions or, have any suggestions about any future topics that you want us to cover, just feel free to comment under the video or reach out to either of us on Instagram. Mine's at ShermaFX. Stefano's is Stefano'sFX28. We will see you guys next week.
See you guys.
All right, thanks, guys.